Here is a question that sounds simple until you remove fire from the world. What do you eat when nothing can be cooked? No flame to soften meat. No boiling water. No heat to turn danger into dinner. Just you. Hunger. Teeth. Hands. Stones. Memory. And a landscape full of things that might feed you, poison you, exhaust you, or make you sick before fire. Eating is not comfort. It is negotiation. You are not choosing a meal. You are asking a colder set of questions. Can you chew this? Can your stomach survive it? Can your body pull enough energy from it? Can you eat it before another animal finds it? Can you drink from that water without paying for it later? This is the world your ancestors lived in for an enormous stretch of evolutionary time. Modern humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. The genus Homo reaches back close to 3 million years. But regular, controlled fire appears much later, somewhere between 400,000 and 1 million years ago, with earlier evidence still debated. That means for a very long time, there is no cooking, no heat-softening muscle, no flame-opening starch, no smoke preserving meat, no boiling killing the invisible things in water. So start with the food everyone wants to talk about first. Meat. The bones give the first clue. At ancient sites, animal bones carry cut marks made by stone tools. Some of those marks go back at least 2.5 million years. That means hominins were cutting flesh from carcasses long before they had a reliable way to cook it. And if there is no fire, that meat is raw, not rare, not undercooked, raw. And raw meat is not just meat without flavor. It is mechanically stubborn. Muscle fibers resist you. Connective tissue holds together. Cartilage does not soften for free. Every bite asks your jaw to do the work that fire has not yet learned to do. You chew longer. You pull harder. You use teeth, hands, stone flakes, and patience. Your mouth becomes a tool because the world has not been pre-processed for you. This helps explain why earlier hominins had stronger chewing equipment than modern humans. Larger teeth, more powerful jaws, faces built for food that fought back. But toughness is only the visible problem. The invisible problem is worse. Raw meat can carry bacteria and parasites. Today, cooking is one of the great ways to reduce that danger. Before fire, that defense does not exist. So how do you survive? Part of the answer may be your body. A harsh stomach environment can destroy some pathogens before they move deeper. But the colder answer is that not everyone survives every exposure. Some meals make you sick. Some risks are simply part of the background cost of being alive. The ancient world does not need to be safe. It only needs to be survivable often enough. That is why muscle is not always the best prize. Organs and marrow may matter even more. Liver, kidney, brain, fat, marrow. These are not side dishes. They are shortcuts. Softer than raw muscle. Richer in energy. Easier to turn into usable life. Bone marrow is especially important. Ancient bones show percussion marks. Signs that hominins deliberately broke them open to reach the fat inside. Think about that. You are not just eating an animal. You are solving it. Stone opens what teeth cannot. Marrow gives you concentrated calories in a world where calories are hard to extract. And sometimes, you are not the first one at the carcass. You may arrive after another predator has already killed. That changes everything. Fresh meat is one thing. Scavenged meat is a clock. The longer it sits, the more dangerous it becomes. But danger does not always mean refusal. In a hard world, danger means calculation. Is there still marrow inside? Can you cut away usable flesh? Can the group eat quickly? Can the risk be worth the energy? Before fire, meat is not just food. It is timing, force, infection, opportunity, and judgment. And that is only the first layer. Because most days, For most groups, survival probably does not come from dramatic carcasses. It comes from plants, and raw plants have their own way of refusing to surrender. At first, plants look like the safer answer. They do not run, they do not bite, they do not come with another predator standing nearby. But that does not mean they are easy. A fruit can be generous when it is ripe. Sugar is already there, ready for your body to use. Nuts and seeds can give you fat and protein. Leaves, shoots, and tender plant parts can fill the day when nothing larger appears. But roots and tubers are different. They seem like perfect survival food. Hidden underground, available when the surface is dry, full of stored energy. But before fire, that energy is partly locked away. Raw starch is not open and waiting for you. It sits inside structures your digestive enzymes cannot easily reach. Later, cooking will break those structures apart. Heat will soften the plant, open the starch, and make the calories easier to claim. But you do not have that yet. So when you bite into a raw tuber, you are not eating the same food a cooked human eats later. You are fighting a sealed package. Some of the energy passes through unused. Some of the meal costs more effort than it gives back. That is the cruel part about food before fire. Calories on the landscape are not the same as calories inside your body. So you use what you have. You chew longer. You pound. You mash. You crush plant tissue with stones. You increase the surface area because every broken piece gives your body a better chance. This is not cooking, but it is already technology. A stone used to smash a root is a small rebellion against raw nature. And sometimes, time does part of the work. Food left in warm conditions can begin to ferment. It changes, softens, breaks down, becomes easier to digest in ways that do not require flame. Not always safely, not always intentionally, but before fire, you take help wherever the world gives it. Still, the best foods are often the ones that do not need heat in the first place. Ripe fruit, nuts, seeds, soft plant parts, and insects. Modern people often treat insects like a dare. But in the pre-fire world, insects are not a joke. They are protein. They are fat. They are small enough to process without cooking. Available in places where larger prey may be rare. And dense enough to matter. Termites, ants, grubs, larvae. To you, they may look like desperation. To a hungry hominin, they are efficient. No long chase. No giant carcass. No need to soften muscle with heat. No need to preserve a large body before it spoils. Just a hidden source of nutrition inside wood, soil, nests, and rotting material. And you are not guessing blindly. Your closest living relatives show how sophisticated this can be. Chimpanzees use tools to extract termites and ants. They remember where food appears. They follow seasonal changes. A raw diet does not mean a stupid diet. It means you need knowledge sharp enough to replace comfort. Honey is another kind of miracle. It is almost pure, usable energy. No chewing battle. No starch problem. No cooking required. Your body can take it quickly. But the problem is access. Wild honey is defended. To get it, you may have to face bees. Climb. Reach. Break. Endure pain. And remember where the hive is. So again, the question is not simply, can you eat this? The question is it worth the cost? That is the pattern running through the whole pre-fire menu. Food is never just food. It is effort, risk, timing, digestibility, memory. A raw plant can be abundant and still difficult. An insect can look disgusting and still be valuable. A tuber can be full of energy and still refuse to give it easily. Honey can be perfect fuel and still be dangerous to steal. Your body carries part of this history. Compared with other great apes, humans have a smaller digestive tract, especially a smaller colon. One major explanation is that cooking eventually took over some of the work digestion used to do. Heat made food easier. A smaller gut became possible. And that matters because gut tissue is expensive to maintain. So is a brain? This is the idea behind the expensive tissue hypothesis. If the gut becomes less costly, more energy can support a larger brain. But before that shift, you are still living under the old pressure. More chewing, more processing, more searching, more judgment. Your teeth tell the same story. Microscopic wear on ancient enamel shows scratches and pits from tough, fibrous foods. Some hominin lineages built massive jaws and teeth for that world. Others leaned into tools, flexibility, and choice. That second path matters, because before fire, intelligence is not abstract. It is practical. It is knowing what to eat, what to avoid, what to crush, what to share, what to risk, and when to walk away. And that leads to the next problem. Even if you find the food, how do you keep it long enough to matter? That is the next problem fire would eventually help solve. With fire, meat can be smoked, food can be dried near heat, water can be boiled. A dangerous resource can become safer, softer, and more useful. But before fire, the clock starts immediately. If you find a carcass, it does not wait for you. It begins to change. Heat, insects, bacteria, and other animals all move in. The meal is turning into risk while you are still deciding what to do with it. So you cannot treat food like property in the modern sense. You cannot store most fresh meat for later. You cannot protect it from decay for long. You have to act fast, and that may have shaped something deeper than diet. It may have shaped society, because if a large carcass cannot be preserved, hoarding becomes less useful. A body too large for one person to eat will rot before it can be privately controlled. So the smarter move is often distribution. You share. Not because the world is kind, because the world is wasting the meat if you do not. Today, you eat because someone else found food. Tomorrow, someone else eats because you did. A raw world pushes cooperation into the bones of survival, not as a moral slogan, as math. Food that cannot be stored becomes relationship. Food that must be eaten quickly becomes obligation. Food that you give away today may become food returned later when the luck changes. Plants solve some of this differently. Nuts and seeds can last longer because they are dry, protected, and naturally packaged. Some roots and tubers remain underground like a hidden bank of calories, waiting until needed. So storage before fire is not always a container. Sometimes it is a shell. Sometimes it is soil. Sometimes it is memory. You remember where the good trees are. You remember which season brings the insects out. You remember which water source made someone sick. And water matters more than people usually realize. Fire did not only change food, it changed drinking. Once you can boil water, you have a way to reduce invisible danger. But before that, every stream, pond, and river is a gamble. Clear water can still hurt you. Moving water can still carry things you cannot see. So you learn patterns. Which pools are risky after heat? Which sources stay cleaner? Which places animals use heavily? Which water once made the group ill? This is not modern science. It is remembered consequence. And remembered consequence is one of the earliest forms of knowledge. This is where the pre-fire world becomes more interesting than it first appears. It is not just primitive hunger. It is strategy. You have to know which foods are worth chewing, which roots are worth smashing, which insects are worth digging for, which carcass is still usable, which risk is too expensive, which season changes everything. A tropical forest does not feed you like a dry savanna. A wet season does not feed you like a dry one. Fruit appears and disappears. Insects rise and vanish. Underground foods matter more when the surface fails. So there is no single pre-fire menu. There are maps inside memory. And there are decisions Again, and again, and again. Chimpanzees help us understand why this matters. They do not cook, yet wild chimpanzees track seasons, eat many plant species, forage insects, use tools, hunt opportunistically, and share meat. They are not tiny humans, but they show something important. A raw diet can demand intelligence. It can demand planning. It can demand social awareness. It can demand memory sharp enough to replace technology you do not yet have. So when you imagine early hominins before fire, do not imagine creatures simply grabbing whatever was nearby. Imagine constant assessment, a stone in the hand, a carcass in the sun, a root that needs crushing, a hive worth risking, a water source remembered for the wrong reason, a group waiting to see who shares. This is the larger reversal. Fire did not create intelligence from nothing. It arrived after a long apprenticeship in difficulty. Before fire, your ancestors had to solve food with bodies, tools, memory, and each other. They were not the fastest animals, not the strongest, not the safest, but they could adapt. They could crack bone, mash plants, track seasons, watch other species, share what could not be stored, avoid what had once punished them, and change strategy when the landscape changed. That is what the pre-fire diet really reveals. Not just what humans ate, but what eating required before the world became cookable. A raw meal was a test. A cracked bone was a solution. A handful of insects was not desperation. It was intelligence in a small, moving form. A risky drink was a lesson. A shared carcass was a social contract. For millions of years, hominins lived in a world that offered food, but did not make it easy. And before we cooked the world, we had to learn how to survive it raw.